my name is Jennifer Matos. I'm the Executive Director of the Noah Webster House and West Hartford Historical Society, and I'm bringing you the 15th edition of our Armchair Tour of West Hartford history. Guess where I am? I'm at the birthplace of Noah Webster, our very own Noah Webster House. The 15th episode seemed like a good time to share with you a little bit more about this national historic landmark that we have here in our town of West Hartford, and to tell you a little bit more about Noah Webster himself. So, how many of you have actually been to the Noah Webster house? Guessing probably a lot of you have, but you'd be surprised. We definitely hear from many people who have grown up in West Hartford and have never stopped here before. It's okay, I get it. We tend to do that in our lives. We get busy with our everyday tasks and chores, and we end up not really visiting the history or the museums that are around us, and it tends to be when we're on vacation that we take the time to go explore some of the sites. So if you are perhaps not going on vacation this year due to COVID-19 and you end up doing a staycation, perhaps you would want to visit the Noah Webster House, which is right here at 227 South Main Street in West Hartford. So Noah Webster's house, which is standing behind me, has been this iconic house here in the community since it was really built, which was 1720. So the house is one of the three oldest houses in town. The other two houses that age from around the same date are the Sarah Whitman Hooker house, which is over on New Britain Avenue, and also the Asa Gillette house, which is just down the street from us on South Main Street. So this house was likely built by Noah Webster's grandfather, whose name was Daniel Webster, and Noah Webster's father, Noah Webster Sr., took over ownership of the house in 1747. He married a woman named Mercy Steele, and they had 5 children. Noah Webster was the 4th child and the 2nd son. He was born here in the house in 1758. So when Noah Webster was growing up here in West Hartford in the 1700s, it's a very small community. There are only about 1,000 people living here, so maybe 100 families or so. And almost everybody had farms kind of spread out along the main thoroughfares. Noah Webster's family owned a 200-acre farm here, and it would have extended as far as Rockledge and also back towards Ridgewood Road. So it was a pretty expansive piece of property. In addition to farming, the Websters were weavers, so they had a weaving shop actually across the street. And in our museum, we actually have weaving a bench loom that they would have used to weave blankets and fabrics and such. And so we have that on display in the house so you can kind of see what Noah Webster's childhood would have been like. When Noah Webster grew up here, his family did own property, but they weren't necessarily wealthy. They were definitely a farming family. Remember that at this time, the town of West Hartford doesn't exist. Instead, it is called the West Division of Hartford. So this was really kind of the quiet country bumpkin kind of section, as opposed to the more cosmopolitan Hartford. Noah Webster would have attended the Congregational Church here in town, which at the time was called the Fourth Congregational Church. Today we would know it as First Church. So some of our past episodes, we've talked about some of the different people who would have attended that church, including Goodman, Timothy Goodman, who Goodman Green is named after. And we also talked about George, who was enslaved by him, and also Bristow, who bought his own freedom and has that gravestone in the Old Center Cemetery. So these are people that Noah Webster would have known. I mean, this was a community of 1,000. They're all attending the same church. So in all likelihood, Noah Webster knew all of these same people that we're talking about. So while attending the Congregational Church, there was a new minister. His name was Nathan Perkins. And Nathan Perkins was a recent graduate from Yale, and he offered to tutor Noah Webster to prepare him for college. So Noah Webster asked his parents if this could happen, and they said yes. So Noah Webster started studying pretty hard to get into Yale. At that point, he had only had a one-room schoolhouse education, which we talked about also before, was kind of spotty depending on what schoolhouse you attended. And he would have needed to learn things like Greek and Latin in order to be able to succeed at Yale. So he does gain entrance to Yale, and his father and he'd take their one horse the whole way to New Haven in order for Noah Webster to start school in 1774. So when you visit the Noah Webster house, the house is interpreted to represent that year, 1774, the last year that Noah Webster really lives full-time in the house as a child. However, even after he graduates from college, which he does in about 1778, he comes back constantly to the house. It's very much a part of his life. We find it in diary entries and letters throughout his life. He's always talking about his father's place, his birthplace, so much so that even on his deathbed, he asks about this grapevine that he had been growing in his New Haven home that had come from this farm here in West Hartford. So we really believe that the town of West Hartford really helped shape Noah Webster into the person that he would become. For instance, when he gets started in his career after he graduates from Yale, he doesn't really have any options. He wants to study law, and his father can't afford to send him there. They had already mortgaged the farm to send him to Yale. So he ends up taking the only job he can kind of think of, and that's to become a teacher at a one-room schoolhouse, just like William Hall, who we talked about a couple weeks ago. And Noah Webster, like William Hall, also saw the need for reform. And what he decided to reform was the books that the children were using. So that's actually how he gets started writing probably his most influential book, which is the Blueback Speller, which Blueback Square is named after. Its real name was the Grammatical Institute of the English Language, and it had this blue cover on it, so it became known as the Blueback Speller. And that book really was instrumental for educating millions of Americans how to be American at a time when America hadn't even won the American Revolution yet. But Noah Webster recognized that in order for our nation to succeed, that we really needed to raise the children to feel patriotic and to learn how to be American rather than being British. And had Noah Webster not had an experience here in town as a pupil at a one-room schoolhouse, perhaps he would not have been so well equipped to take on this new job. And he did teach in a Hartford area one-room schoolhouse as well as he was getting started. Once he wrote the Blueback Speller, he actually lives in Hartford for quite a while. He marries and brings his young wife to live in Hartford, and then frequently comes to visit his family home here in West Hartford. He spends his first Thanksgiving with his wife here at the old homestead. Later, Noah Webster, of course, goes on to write his most famous book, which is the American Dictionary of the English Language. And this is something that he spent about 28 years working on, which is pretty amazing when you think about that kind of dedication and stick-to-itiveness that it took to really pursue that project. And again, I have to credit his upbringing here in West Hartford. Noah Webster was someone who was not averse to hard work. Sure, he grew up here working on the farm, having to rise with the sun, work all day. He really valued that kind of dedication and perseverance, and he really needed those qualities in order to complete this project he had started. How many of us would have started something like that and at least a couple years in probably would have given up, if not a few months into it? So really admirable this effort that he put in to an American Dictionary of the English Language. And when it was published in 1828, it really was lauded as a huge success. It's considered to be America's first dictionary, and he really made it uniquely American by adding in words that you could only find in North America, such as the different flora and fauna, and also making sure that the words that were common in both England and America were in there, but that they had the American version of the definition. There were certain words that took on new meaning for Americans, such as Constitution or federalism, and Noah Webster himself actually coined the phrase Americanize. So Noah Webster's house has really been a fixture here in our town for 200 years, 300 years, and it's amazing when you think about how many generations of people have experienced it as a landmark. So when you think about our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, everybody back, probably from the time that Noah Webster wrote the dictionary in 1828, would have known this place as Noah Webster's birthplace, even before it became a museum. It didn't become a museum until 1965. The last owners of this house actually donated it to the town of West Hartford. And then our foundation, which is called the Noah Webster House, Inc., we actually, this nonprofit started to care for the house. So we've been caring for the house now for over 50 years, and it is our pleasure and our pride to do so. And we're just so happy to have this National Historic Landmark here in town. We're happy to have the birthplace of a founding father here in town. And we're happy to be reopened. We had been closed due to COVID-19 since March 16th, but I'm very happy to announce that we just reopened yesterday on July 6th, and we are now open for tours. So if you have never had a chance to come visit the museum, I hope you will do so. We are open daily from 1 to 4. We have some COVID-19 safety precautions that we're taking, including requirement of masks and lots of sanitization, but you can come here on a pretty socially distanced, safe visit and enjoy what your own community has to offer. Hope you learned a little bit new. I'll see you next week. Bye.